What's going on, everybody? Yep, I am here rocking the Beetlejuice review solo. Could not get Luke out of the house for this one, unfortunately. No, I'm just kidding. Just schedules didn't line up. But nonetheless, I went out, I saw it, I checked it out. And if you didn't catch my 10 films you should watch out for this month, I pretty much set the record straight for you guys that I'm not the biggest Tim Burton fan. And I'll be completely upfront when I say that in this review as well. I think Tim Burton is okay. He is a director that has not quite aged like a fine wine to me. I absolutely love some of his earlier work, as many people do, but I just feel like the last maybe 5-6 movies that this guy has made over the years just don't connect with me. They just feel too much excess. You can kind of feel like he's a director who would breed a lot better creations if he had more limitations put on him. But because you have the pedigree and the name of Tim Burton, everybody's willing to shell out the dollars for this man, as, you know, directors who have reached that status deserve. So where do I sit with Beetlejuice specifically? It is, in fact, one of those Tim Burton films that I enjoyed. It's not something that was necessarily a staple in my household. I think we were a much bigger Edward Scissorhands kind of household than we were Beetlejuice, but I still watched it. I still grew up with it slightly. Again, not all the time it was on. Usually right around Halloween, we'd throw it on TV every once in a while. But it wasn't something like with some folks where it was like a huge, massive part of their childhood. But I have to be honest, I was a little lukewarm on this when it first got announced, but after that second trailer and seeing it play in front of a couple of big films I saw this year, my interest got piqued. You know, I think it might be something to do with seeing Michael Keaton come back to, you know, a classic role just like he did with The Flash. I do love Winona Ryder a lot, and Jenna Ortega is a force to be reckoned with. And, you know, she's just very charming, and she just works in many of these roles. I have not seen Wednesday, but I get it. I understand. She's in Scream. She's wonderful there. And I could easily see her working well with Tim Burton. So how is Beetlejuice? Well, let's get into some of the positives first. My first major positive I have to give Beetlejuice is the fact that I loved the dynamic between Michael Keaton and Winona Ryder here. I thought that Lydia Deetz and Beetlejuice just felt like they were versions of their characters that were, 20 years later. This was something that didn't feel forced like some of these legacy sequels do. I felt like their interactions were pure, and they had a lot of great comedy and just dynamic together. You can tell that these are two very seasoned actors who are very comfortable with each other, and it really plays well into their characters. I also have to say that Catherine O'Hare gets thrown into that trio as well, because Delia Deetz is also wonderful. These three play off of each other so beautifully. I think that they really feel like aged versions of their characters rather than just people putting on the costumes. And I gotta commend the team for putting them together again and not skimping on the small stuff there, because they absolutely made this film for me. And yes, some of the newcomers as well. Jenna Ortega, Willem Dafoe, both of them excellent. Jenna Ortega is, again, an actress who is going to be working in Hollywood for a long, long time if she keeps picking the role she does. She is pure charisma, pure charm in this. I loved her character of Astrid. I thought that she really embodies the Tim Burton world very well. I am somebody, again, who has not seen Wednesday, so seeing her step into this realm, it was something of like, okay, I get why people love her working with Tim Burton, and who knows, she could be his next muse going into what might be the final stretch of his career. Another huge positive that I have to give this film is, of course, going to the set design and the costuming. I think that they absolutely nailed a lot of the practical sets, and the way that they shoot them and the way that they use the camera in this film feels very epic in scope, which is kind of strange for a film like the first one that is very contained. But you could tell that Tim Burton was having a lot of fun playing with the whole, small town into big town, and just kind of running through a lot of these different areas in the afterlife as well. They do not skimp on any of that. There's a lot of practical effects on display in this film, and yes, there are some CGI, but I'll even admit some of the CGI doesn't look that bad. I think that it actually holds up pretty well, and it doesn't oversaturate the film, in my opinion. You know, you get a lot of these movies that will just rely too heavily on CGI, and they don't feel anything like the original when it comes to presentation and tone, and I think that Beetlejuice Beetlejuice, for the most part, lands on that very well. They land on the proper side of mixing them, rather than relying on CGI. And although this is going to be kind of a half criticism, half positive for me, I have to kind of put it more in the positive, because I definitely felt Tim Burton's voice a little bit more in this project as opposed to some of his more recent work. There were a lot of moments where you could tell that he's very attached to this material and this idea, and that he actually was putting his best foot forward in this. This didn't feel overly sanitized in a lot of, again, the presentation, the way the characters interacted with each other. It just, to me, felt like he was actually enjoying probably about 95% of his work on this project. Yes, there is a little bit here that feels phoned in, and we'll get into that now with the negatives. Starting off with my biggest negative in Beetlejuice Beetlejuice, and that is there is seriously no central villain in this film, and it even sets one up. And it's not a spoiler. They're there, and of course, from all the marketing, we know that I'm talking about Monica Bellucci's character. And, you know, she is somebody who I absolutely respect, and I was excited to see coming onto the big screen here, and I thought that the design and the look of her character was very intriguing. The makeup looks amazing when it comes to the practical side of it, but this character is given nothing. She is given nothing to do but roam around this film until the third act, and by the time you get there, nothing feels earned, nothing feels like consequential to them. They really feel like they got placed on the sidelines to a different story, and admittedly a story I was much more interested in. There is another kind of character that gets introduced into this that I will not dive too deep into for spoiler reasons, but it also kind of falls that same fate where they get introduced and it's interesting, but quickly they are sent away, or their storyline just isn't expounded upon enough. And I just hate when movies do that, because it does leave you kind of sitting there saying, okay, I know kind of where this is going, and it just feels like the writers knew what they wanted to do at first, but something changed along the way, and they just decided, you know what, we're going to throw these guys off to the side instead of killing them or writing them off entirely and taking them out of the script. We're just going to let them do their thing, and then we'll circle back to it eventually. And it just makes the film feel very jagged in that sense. It feels very lazy. And I don't like that, because I think that the way they kind of angle, especially Beetlejuice and, Lydia Deetz in this story, I kind of like the dynamic they took with that. So not having, a central villain in a sense for those two to play off of, it just really messed up the story there for me in a big way. And yeah, so it's probably no surprise that my next big criticism really comes down to the pacing of this movie. I think that the first half starts to set up really nicely, but then we kind of stall. We stall for probably a good 15 minutes, and we're just kind of waiting for things to get started again. We're waiting for those dominoes to fall. At one point we think they are, and then, we got to continue on with the story a little bit more, I guess. And it's not till close to an hour into this film when things really start to get moving. So by the time we really get to the interesting part of this movie, we're not there for very long, and it just really left me feeling like, again, this script was butchered. I feel like there might have been a couple different ideas for how to continue this story, and they just tried to kind of, Frankenstein monster them together in a way. And it really does leave you as, like, a viewer a bit perplexed. And, that's not to say that this movie isn't fun. It's definitely fun. It's definitely going to make a lot of people who love the first Beetlejuice very, very happy. I think, again, there is a bit more, care put into the characters, especially. So that's going to go a long way for people. So, again, if you're not really there to, have a very compelling story, I should say, then I can see you enjoying your time with this film. All in all, I am going to give Beetlejuice Beetlejuice worth a watch. Again, this is a fun movie. This is a lot of just shutting your brain off and enjoying your time with some great characters. The cast is wonderful. They all seem to have really enjoyed their time on this film. Again, you can feel that Tim Burton at least has most of his heart in this project for at least a little while. There are characters who are terribly underwritten and definitely thrown under the bus for a good majority of it, which is a shame. But I think that if you're going to see a film this weekend that you want to get into the spooky season, especially if you have, some kids that are probably around the ages of, 8, 9, 10-ish, they're going to have a fun time with this. It's a little bit more adult than it is child-friendly, and it's not overly adult. But, it's got a little bit for the adults who grew up with Beetlejuice and a little something for their older kids. I think that this is definitely something I could catch myself watching again, especially after watching the first Beetlejuice, just because the characters are so well done. But is it something that I necessarily think we needed, and does the story justify itself being here? Not really. So make your own decision on that. I say maybe wait till renting it if you're on the fence, but if you are excited to see this and you've been anticipating it and you've got your family ready to go see Beetlejuice in the theaters, go ahead and see it. I think that you will quite enjoy your time. Because again, I'm not the biggest Tim Burton fan. I'm not even the biggest Beetlejuice fan, so I'm not the target audience here. And even I found a little bit of enjoyment in the film. So there you have it, guys. That is my review of Beetlejuice Beetlejuice. Let me know down below if you're excited to check this one out. Is this something that you've been anticipating all year or for many years? Am I way off base here? Am I being too much of a picky little bitch about it? Maybe. Who knows? I am just a glorified YouTube critic after all. But other than that, we got a lot of great stuff up on the channel. A film I really loved called Test Screening that we got to see at Fright Fest. I just posted a review about that earlier today. As well as I mentioned it at the top of the video, I have my 10 films you should look out for in the month of September up now. So check those out. Yeah, we got a lot of great stuff coming. Still more reviews to go this week. And much, much more coming down the pipeline as we inch closer and closer to October. So yeah, other than that, it's going to wrap it up here for me. So until next time, I'm Dylan Newell. And remember, stay scared.
Do the hard shit, gonna do it live. Cause Splattercast kick it every day they live. Splattercast, gonna slash your ass. 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 Splattercast, gonna slash your ass.